How do we know if someone is the right person for us? Or how do we know when the timing is right? Will God speak to us about this? And if so, how?
Go ahead. I've been talking for like a long.
I feel like you answered it a lot in your message, which was great, by the way. And you look really hot tonight, by the way, also.
Wow. Inappropriate. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, babe.
I do think knowing if someone is the right person, like Sam said, comes from knowing yourself. I don't think until you are in a married relationship you will ever fully understand the gift of singleness. And I do think that is kind of how the kingdom of God works. A lot of it is faith. It's believing God's word and obeying it, and then not really knowing until after you step out in faith if it's really true, right? And I do think that knowing yourself, I was talking to someone earlier tonight, and I was saying, we know ourselves best, right? And I was like, I remember when I first met him and he didn't ask me out, just thinking, if Sam were going to ask my father, God, for permission to date me, I know that God would say no right now. Like, I just knew where I was. And so I think that the most honest question you can ask yourself is, am I really in a place to be, like, having anyone come into my life? Do you have a lot of, like, pending things? Are you even certain the direction your life is going? I think answering a lot of those questions kind of does the work for you and answers whether or not you're ready for that. And I think the questions that Sam put up also are good questions to ask.
Yeah, one thing I'll say to that as well, there was actually a proverb that really like spoke to me that's super random, but Proverbs 24:27, this spoke to me when I was a young adult, kind of asking these same questions. And it's this, put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, with this, the way I saw it was just this proverb about priorities. And for me, the way it spoke to me was the fact that it's like, you need to get to work out in the field first. You need to discover what field God's sending you into. And you need to get, established in some things first before you focus on building your house. And that spoke to me in the side of like building, my house. Like Nicholle is home for me, like building that side of family and all that. But I kind of had it backwards. I was like, God, I'm trying to build the house. I don't have any idea what you're trying to do in my life and all that. But this just kind of put things in a perspective for me to where it's understanding in my life, hey, it's time for something and it's not time for something. And so for me, I just understood that, God, I have no idea what you're trying to establish me in and all that. And your young adulthood, is a season of discovery. And I really felt like, God, this is a season for me to discover more about the reason why you grabbed hold of me, the reason why you made me. And in doing that, getting established in that really set me up for being able to be someone who understood when it was time to get into relationship and when, it wasn't time. And I knew just because of you, just don't neglect the reality of the fact that God speaks to us. I knew that it was not time to be in relationship. And God just communicated that to my heart. A lot of times we go, God, I don't know if that's really you, so I'm going to test it out, But that when God speaks to you. And if you don't know, believe me tonight, God can speak to you. And anyway, so just knowing that it wasn't time for that, it was time for something else. And it was time to discover more about who God created me to be, what he wanted me to do. And in doing that, it put priorities right in my life. And so I really would encourage you, if you don't really know the answer to that question, like, God, what are you trying to establish me in? What are you trying to do in my life? Make that a priority, even before the side of like, God, who, would you have for me in my life? Cool. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. What's the next one? Okay. The next one is, how do we wait for a dating relationship in a healthy way? what are some practical things we can do to become the best version of ourselves and be ready for a relationship? Honestly, I think, so how do we wait for a dating relationship in a healthy way? I do think some of the things that we talked about tonight highlight that, but how do we become the best versions of ourselves and be ready for a relationship? How do we become the best version of ourselves? It's not by looking within. The way that we become the best version of ourselves is by looking to the one in whose image we're created after, right? And so if I look to Jesus, if I look to God, like, ultimately, like, he's the one who knows the best version of me. And it's in looking to him that I'm going to discover more of this. And the reality is this, is that as I look to him, he's going to begin to go, Sam, there's some stuff we need to work on. You know, and I think about for myself, you know, if you have in your mind the fact that, like, you need to be in some perfect state before you're ready to get married, like, you're mistaken. Like, you don't. Like, me and Nicholle still are working on becoming better versions of ourselves, for sure. And marriage can help you do that. But ultimately, it's in that relationship with God where he will begin, if you will allow him, to address the things that need to be addressed in your life. You know, he will begin to show you areas that you need to grow in. One of the things that I asked our leaders at the beginning of this year is, I want you to pray and ask God what area in your life he wants to put attention on and he wants to speak to in this season, he wants to grow you in. And all of them had an answer. And that's just the way it is, that if you will dare to ask God, God, what are you focusing on in my life in this season? He will answer that question for you. He answered the question for me in this season. And if you will just lean in each season of your life to the areas that God is addressing in your life, you're going to continue to become a better version of yourself. But you're not going to just discover how to become a better version of yourself by looking to Google. You're going to discover becoming a better version of yourself by looking to God. And I think that for you, that would be the best thing that you could possibly do in this season. And that ultimately will make you ready for a relationship.
Yeah, to add to that, I probably sound like a broken record, but I think utilizing your friendships to, actually Taylor said it, like iron sharpens iron. And the truth is that if you're not really good at forgiving friends, you're not going to be good at forgiving your spouse. If you're not really good with gentleness now in your singleness, you're not going to be good at it with your spouse. Your marriage relationship is a magnified friendship. This is my best friend in the whole world. And so it wouldn't make sense that there are things that I do with my best girlfriends that I like magically can or can't do with Sam. The way you are relationally is the way you will be in a relationship, and it will magnify. So if you have weaknesses in your friendships, in your family relationships, that's a really great way to be a better single person preparing for marriage and relationship. Because believe me, all the ways that I suck as a friend, I like suck even more when like in my marriage. And that would be the reason why we say singleness is an opportunity. First and foremost, to be more like Christ, because in all the areas where we suck, you're just gonna suck that much more in the marriage relationship. So if you wanna wait well, have friends who, I say it all the time, who will tell you the truth in love. Be someone who has confronting conversations, who you can have those kind of confronting conversations with the people that you are in close relationship with, and listen to what they're saying. Because if someone over and over is telling you something about your character and about the person that you are, it's likely that it's true. And then you can work on changing it. And that will actually help, because being married and carrying someone through that, it's really difficult. Working on yourself while trying to care and love another person the way it's required of you in marriage is difficult. So do it now.
It's good. I like, what did Taylor say earlier? Find some iron that'll sharpen, no butter knives. That's good stuff. But yeah, it's true. I love what Nicholle just shared. When it comes to the pace of a relationship, what if I want to move slow, but my partner doesn't? Do I let them go after trying to establish a boundary? Yes.
Yes.
Next question. No, but yeah, no, for real though, I do think that especially, in this, I mean, this could go either way. It could be a guy who texted this in. It could be, one of you ladies who texted this in. But yeah, if you are not on the same page around this, I think it's such a red flag. It obviously is very telling about where this person is coming from, what's informing them. You know what I mean? And what it's telling you is that this is a person who does not understand love. That's what it's telling you, is that this is a person who does not understand love.
The first thing it says, Corinthians, is love is
patient.
Patient.
Yeah.
It's the first thing.
And so, yeah, this is very revealing, and so I think that is something that you definitely would be saying, this is a deal breaker for me if we're not on the same page about this, if you don't want to grow in understanding, what biblical love is and stuff. And it's one thing to be honest with each other about the struggle in this area and the temptation of this area and stuff like that. It's another thing to be like, I don't see anything wrong with it. And so I think if it's the latter where it's kind of like, I don't see what the big deal is and this and that, then yeah, definitely.
I do want to mention something else when it comes to pace, because Sam and I actually have a story around this. And it was because for me, I did this whole single thing. I worked really hard on trying to be better at the things that I really sucked at. And then I had Sam. When he first met me, God was like, no. And so I didn't think he was interested in me. And then a year and a half later, I could tell, because he was really awkward, it was really cute about it, that something had suddenly changed. So we started dating. But the thing is, and I say this hoping nobody takes it really super Christian, I had prayed and I said, God, I was in a really bad breakup. I don't want to go through that again unless the next person that I'm with, if I know that they're like the one. And I was really conflicted because Sam was asking me out, and I had to now let my guard down when me, the girl who was like always down for coffee, always down for hanging out with another guy, always down, I put a guard up, and I was like, I can't do that anymore. I'm trying to make space for my future husband, and so I can't just be any which way with all these guys. But now I was like, God, what do I do? I prayed that it would be do I just ask him? So are we going to get married? It gets really awkward when you're praying something. And it was so weird because Sam could sense it. He could sense that I was sort of guarded. And he started getting oh, dang, did I? Because Sam, he's that person, which is one of the things I love most about him. Sam, he thinks through everything very thoroughly. And so by the time Sam asked me out, he was sure. Which, gosh, for you men out there, I can't tell you as a woman, how comforting that is to know that if you can, just observe and get a good feel on, could you even see yourself with this person? Because for me, by the time he asked me out, he just knew. As long as she's down, I love everything about her that I've gotten to know, even around us. So he's okay, maybe she's not. I'm so confused. It was my first Christian relationship, and I remember us having a conversation about pace, and because Sam was I'm ready, and I was okay, I need time to get ready, because I didn't know how to wrap my head around this, whether he was going to be my husband. And I remember, I actually have this somewhere in my phone. I remember him saying, like, I'm willing to go at whatever pace is comfortable for you. Because he knew that he needed to give me the space to either get to where, and it's risky. It's risky because it's like, okay, I'm gonna hope she gets to where I am. But really, all we needed to do was have a conversation where we were both on the same page. We're like, yeah, I mean, I know enough about you. You know enough about me. Like, I wouldn't ask you out if I didn't want to marry you. It doesn't always work out that way. But for us, very early on, that conversation happened, and then I was like, cool, I know I can let my guard down. And God really answered that prayer for me. But it really does take a conversation that may be completely uncomfortable, because it's not always a pace thing when it comes to sexual things. That's pretty clear in the Bible, but I do think as a man in the relationship, you should be honoring and respectful of the pace that the woman wants to go at, unless she's trying to cross a line that the Bible says not to, then definitely not. But does that kind of make sense? Like an emotional pace, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next one we have here, it says, okay, there were some questions about advice.
Pure in singleness.
Yeah.
Purity in singleness.
Please give any advice you can there. And then there was this question. If I have already been blessed with the one God wants me to be with, and we've already talked about getting married and having a future together, why wait until marriage to have sex? Ooh, thank you for asking that question, whoever asked that question. But yeah, first, I guess, staying pure in singleness and in dating relationships, so kind of advice there. So one thing I will say is this, so a lot of times the way that we go about dating kind of sets us up, right? So it's like you get two of us alone together who already like have desire for each other. And most of the time, all we're doing is hanging out alone, usually at night, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, let's just talk about odds here. You know, like, where can this potentially be going? The Bible says don't give opportunity to the flesh. And I think in the way that we date, oftentimes it's all we're doing. You know, it's like, hey, do you want to come over? We'll just, watch a movie on the couch, like, you guys know. And so, yeah, when it comes down to it, put it this way, when it came to me and Nicholle knowing, and this is something we stumbled across, we didn't really do this on purpose, but I was able to come to know everything that I needed to know about Nicholle without ever dating her, without ever taking her on a date. And it was just the reality of like being in settings like this. Not only that, but like through the natural things that I felt led to be involved in as a young adult dude, like Nicholle would all of a sudden be led to be, involved in, and not because she was following me, it was because she was following God. And it led to us eventually, at one point being involved in a ministry thing together, and we really got to know each other there, but it was always in the context of being around others, and so it was never just like us dating. And so it wasn't something that we necessarily planned, but by the time that it came to like me asking awkwardly Nicholle out for the first time, I had already known or gotten a chance to see everything that I felt like I needed to see. The questions I needed to be able to answer, like, can I lay my life down for this woman? Like, I was already able to see that. And so let me just say this, that, dating, taking someone out on the kind of way that we go about dating is not the only way that you can come to know everything that you need to know about someone. Just believe that. Just know that there are other ways. But anyway, when it comes to staying pure in singleness, I would say something that Nicholle always says is that, don't just go off by yourselves all the time. Like, I don't think we need to get all like legalistic and stuff, but the reality is that like a third person diffuses intimacy, like that's gonna help like keep you guys pure when awkwardly like your friend's like, hey, I'm here too. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's probably gonna help. Maybe consider, the way that you guys date. There's nothing wrong with taking separate cars, and then we will leave from here and go separate ways. Like there's just thinking about some of these like practical things where you're just realizing that there's certain settings that we should be avoiding because, it's once we get ourselves in this situation and we're throwing that Hail Mary prayer, like, oh, Jesus, please deliver me. Like, it's a little too late. Like, purity is oftentimes a battle that's won before it's begun. Like the Bible, I talked about this with the guys, but for us, the Bible's instruction to us or its message to us when it comes to staying pure and sexual temptation and sexual morality is that when it comes to sexual temptation, don't stand and fight because you're a strong Christian man or woman. It's run and hide, flee. If you're Joseph, leave that coat, get out of the room. It's just, that is the message that the Bible says. So it's a really avoiding certain scenarios, avoiding certain situations that are really going to set you up for failure rather than success.
Yeah, I think to bring some practicality to some of the things that Sam was saying, when he says that he knew things about me before he asked me out, I want to actually make it clear, those of you who have been here long enough would know, he was not texting me. Sam and I did not have each other's number. We didn't have a friendship, but he really secretly liked me. We're talking about Sam gathered this information through observation.
It's kind of creepy, huh?
I'm so grateful for it. I will tell every woman that is just the way it should be. But it just felt like he respected me enough to not even ask that question unless he was sure. And that, as a woman, is so reassuring. And you can be getting your own information through observation. Are they taking notes, or are they scrolling through IG during the message? What kind of man do you want? Are they praying at the table, or are they just I don't know, I don't have anything to say? Are they talking about what God's doing in their life? What kind of person are they? It doesn't take very long to figure some things out. Go sit at their table. They don't need to know that you're there to watch them. It sounds creepy, but I think it's actually a way that we can avoid a lot of pain, a lot of confusion. You don't need to go to coffee and then they have their best act on because they're trying to get you to like them. Just watch them in their natural environment. How are they? I really think that Sam had so much wisdom in doing it this way. It's probably why in the very beginning he was no, she needs to grow a bit. And I did. We really believe in that because we see a lot of collateral damage in the community when people don't do it this way, and when you're just kind of flippant on you're cute, let's go for coffee. Okay, but don't you want them to know something more about you other than the fact that you're cute? Just do some research. And then on the side of purity and how to stay pure, to just be more practical, I just want to add practicality to what Sam was saying. I have a mom who did not grow up in church. I lived at home, my brother and I with my mom, and so she would be like, Sam, she's Hispanic, Sam, do you don't want to stay the night? It's really late. You can stay, don't drive home. I'm like, no, Mom, Sam is leaving, because she didn't care. And if you have those parents, then some of you have the Christian parents who are on the couch, 6 feet apart, not even because of COVID, just 6 feet apart, I had the opposite. Sam, just stay. And I was like, no, Mom, no. Sam is going. This is not, anyways. But so early on, I used to have a TV in my bedroom. We took it out. We just made hard choices that for some people are that's crazy. It's not when you know what it's like to be laying next to that person and suddenly you're just how do I stop now? Lord, help me. Forget it. I'm just going to shut you out, God, because it feels too good and I don't want to stop. If we're going to be real, that is not the moment to try to invite God in. That's what Sam means. You win those battles by setting those hard boundaries before you're even there. And so for us, after movie night, do you want me to walk you? I was so cheesy. I was do you want to come, just tuck me in, it's so late and stuff. No, we did not do that. You didn't even walk. At some point, it was don't even walk me to the door. Because then it's just like, I hold you, and are you sure you don't want to come? Like, just, it's 10:30. What business do you have coming in? Like, what is going to happen at 10:30? You have to set those hard boundaries, and if you haven't been there, maybe you're laughing, but if you've been there, I know in your head you're like, I know what it's like at 10:30. I know what it's like after the movie. I know why we need separate cars. Because sometimes it's not even the front door or in my room, it's the car. I mean, so you have to know what kind of boundaries you need and take serious action. That's what flee means. That's what proactive boundaries mean. Because if you really want to be pure, and I can tell you, because we did not have sex before marriage, I can tell you that on the other side, it is the most beautiful, free thing that I can tell you, because prior to Sam, I did have sex before marriage, and nothing compares. And I can tell you that it's worth it. I can tell you that confidently. And if you want to fight for that and you believe in that, then set those boundaries. And if you don't believe in that, then just be honest about it. But don't go dating somebody in here who cares about being pure, who wants to wait till marriage, acting like you care about it when you don't. Because let me tell you, Mama Bear is going to come out. I take care of my girls in here, and I hope you respect them. Please respect them. And I love you. I want you to be men of God, but honor those women and don't lie. If you really don't care or haven't been convinced of this truth in the Bible, just be honest with where you're at. Be honest, because the ladies at the very least deserve that. And I'm done now.
That was worth the whole night right there. So yeah, forget everything I said earlier. Just take that home. But yeah, and then I think also just another practical thing is just be accountable. Have people who you allow to ask the real questions, the awkward questions that need to be asked. Just be accountable. That's going to help as well. When me and Nicholle, we got engaged pretty fast. We were married within 9 months of starting dating. We were engaged. I'm sorry, we were engaged. Whoa, we were engaged is what I meant to say. Within 9 months of dating. And so when I got engaged, I got this group of guys together, and I was like, you all, every Wednesday when we get together, you need to be asking me a set of questions. Because I knew, okay, now that we're engaged, like, if we were, burning and dating, like, now we're on fire. Okay, so I need you guys to be just asking me some real questions every week, because there's something about accountability that just helps so much, where you just know, it'll help you when even the fact that Jesus is here present is not the thing that is helping you to make the wise decision. Knowing that, they're going to ask me some tough questions in a week, that will also help keep you straight. So get accountable. That is another practical thing you can do. And then I think the last part of that was, if we already know, and Nicholle kind of already spoke to this, but if we already know basically that we're going to get married and having a future together, why wait until marriage to have sex? Well, I will say this. So marriage is a covenant, right? And the thing is, like, when it comes to our culture, our society, we don't really talk about, like, covenant and things like that. But marriage is a covenant, right? Where marriage is actually, like, literally us giving our lives to one another in this way where it's like, okay, before God, before witnesses, like, I am vowing, like, that's why there are vows and all that stuff involved in marriage. It's like, I am vowing, I am promising to keep my end of this and to, pledge myself to you, vow myself to you. God is a witness to this. People are a witness to this. It is a serious thing, right? And when it comes to a covenant, there's always something that seals the covenant, solidifies it. When it comes to God creating the covenant of marriage, sex is the thing that seals it. And even when you get into the neuroscience behind sex and all this type of stuff, you will see that the way God created even things that go on inside of us when we have sex, that it is all meant to seal the deal. It is all meant to seal it to where there's things that are taking place that are bonding us to that person. There's things that are taking place that are just going to work, helping us to be someone who wants to keep going back to this person over and over, and it's this side of now taking this union and sealing it and joining it. right? And so when it comes to it, sex is the thing that seals the covenant. And so when you start taking the seal of the covenant outside of its proper place, right? And you take it outside of covenant, and now, we just seal and break the seal, break the seal, over and over again in our lives. All we're doing through that, and even if you are like, I am so sure that this is the person, this and that, whatever, the statistics even would tell you that you are actually training yourself and setting yourself up more for divorce than a life of marriage. That's just the reality, is that because we have become so used to taking it out of its context and breaking it, we are actually in a generation, or however many generations now have been, proof to this, is the fact that we are actually more preparing and training ourselves and even our bodies for divorce rather than for a lifetime marriage. And so I think that it is very significant. And don't think for a second that, somehow when you are free and able to have sex in marriage, that's going to solve, the issues of lust. So if you can't be patient and wait before marriage, don't think that all of a sudden, because all of a sudden now you can, that all of a sudden you have all this patience and self-control. You're just going to find that because you didn't, get a hold of that appetite before marriage, you're still struggling with that appetite after marriage. And so, guys, for us, it is in your best interest to actually take God at his word and receive, his forgiveness and his way of making all things new. If you haven't before, and if you, need to just start now, hey, that's our story here, is that God makes all things new. That when we came to our wedding day and we chose, God, we're going to do it your way, that he made all things new. That for us, it's like that was the past. Something new has begun. God, we did not get second best because we made mistakes in our life. God has a way of just making all things new, but we just need to trust him, take him at his word, and just realize that there's a great, great benefit and great reason for why he's created it to be the way that it is. Is that good?
Yeah.
Cool.
And to add to that, I think that just because you guys have talked about marriage, it kind of is like the only witness is just you guys, And so I do think that, like Sam was saying, like you're on the day of your wedding, like you are making that declaration before everyone that you invite. And just as a woman, like one of the reasons that you should is because you deserve it. You deserve for the price to be paid for your body to be a lifelong commitment. You deserve that. And so I don't know who asked the question, but you deserve for that person to not just say that to you, but to say that before God and before your family and everyone that you have there on that day. Because honestly, until, like Beyonce said it, if you like it, put a ring on it. Like, my question to you would be, if your question is, if we already know we're going to get married, why shouldn't we have sex? My question is, if you already know you want to get married, then why don't you just get married and then have sex?
Hello.
Like, if he's already so sure, I don't know. What's stopping you? The Bible says if you're burning with passion, be married. Like, why not? I don't know. That's just kind of... and then also, having sex before marriage, there's just something that distracts you from, I think, getting to all of the other stuff that are, like, it's important. I talked about this with the girls last time. It's like all you can think about is that, and so it keeps you from getting to know all the other things and talking about all the other things that you actually need to know and are valuable in a relationship. Like, the sex part will come, and it'll just get better and better. But there's a lot of other things that you need to know and you need to be talking about. You need to be figuring out about one another to know if all the other things will actually work out. That whole side of like being complimenting one another, the side of knowing, like, do we actually complement one another? Once I'm married to you and having sex with you, will I actually enjoy you, like the person you are, everything else, apart from that intimate moment. And I think that sex just distracts you from all of that. So that's kind of just my 2 cents on that. And they did send in one more question. And we did want to say there were a lot of questions, and you guys already know that these nights can go really long. And we are so passionate about this topic. We desire for all of you to be in healthy, thriving relationships that lead to healthy, thriving marriages. So if your question, if you feel like it didn't exactly get answered, all the girls already have my number from last time, but feel free to come ask. We just respond based on our experience, based on what we've seen, because we do see the fruit of a lot of choices just by the nature of us being here in the community. So please ask us if you feel like your question didn't get answered. But one last one is, how should a godly man approach a godly woman?
I think one of the big ones, and I think Nicholle would agree with this, is that just be clear. Be a godly man should be clear about intentions. I think that part of the issue a lot of times in a community like this one can be the fact that, people start to notice each other and can start to have these confusing interactions with each other where it's kind of like you begin to, in a way, lead each other on. And a girl is getting attention from a guy and wondering what he actually thinks, because he hasn't really stated anything. He's just giving attention, he just got your number, and now he's hitting you up randomly and this and that, and maybe you guys have hung out or whatever, but nothing's been made clear. And so you're over here going, I think maybe this might be something, and that is not the way to go about it. I think for guys, when it comes to us and when it comes to a godly man approaching a godly woman, I think being clear about what your intentions are, even if for you it's not like you are the woman for me, I have a word that we're supposed to be married or that. Don't do that, please. That's creepy. We'll kick you out of here. But we won't, but we'll talk to you. Anyway, but what I mean about being clear is just, stating up front what your intentions are. If it's, I really just am trying to, I want to go have a date or whatever with you because I do actually really think that there could be something and I want to get to know you a little better. I want to actually get to know the things that I need to get to know, whatever. But it's just that side of just the clarity to where, girls, you're not wondering what this is about. He's already let you know up front that I am interested in you, and I do want to get to know you. And then taking also in that, hopefully you heard it, but the guys, approach the women. Don't make them be the ones coming to you, but, approach the ladies. Like, I know that, in this day and age and stuff, like, girls, like, you can approach guys too and all that, and that's quite normal and everything, but don't you want to be pursued? Like, don't you want some guy to, have enough courage, even if he's, like, all awkward and, like, whatever, like I was and stuff, to go and be the one who initiates? Because think about this. If you're the one who pursued him, you're going to be the one who always will be pursuing him in the relationship. So anyway, but initiate and be clear.
Yeah, and ladies, can we just have some grace for the guys? I cannot imagine how hard it is to want to just go up to someone and say, like, I think you're really great. Like, I'd want to get to know you. Like, we talked about this as ladies, that rejection is hard. Like, men get rejected too. And I think sometimes we just need to be a little nicer. And I do think men should be the one to ask, but I do also think that we should be both having the respect that women deserve to at least have done some sort of observation other than I think they're cute. So that by the time like you are being clear, because like I said, Sam, by the time he asked me out, it was so weird. There were moments where Sam would do little things. I'm like, does he like me? Does he like me? But it never got confusing because it didn't follow with like, would you want to have some coffee? And then we go for coffee, and then he's like weird, and then he's like talking to some other girl, and then I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I would have those thoughts where I'm like, was it something? And then it would just completely die off because he wouldn't make it confusing. And that's what we're talking about. That's where I'm just like, Mama Bear comes out, because I hate having to talk to people who are just confused. And so if you are that man who is like, I just want to be able to like ask someone out, then first I say, ladies, like have some grace and be gentle. But for men, just that clarity piece is so important. Even if it's like, I'm not really sure, I just know that I just like being around you. I just want to try and talk to you. Whatever it is, just be clear. Because if someone is feeling that confusing feeling, it's the worst feeling. Like when you're like going home and you're just thinking about it and you're like, I can't quite figure it out. It just really sucks to be that person. So I just want to echo the clarity thing, but also know that if you are the person who is confused, 100% you can say, hey, I'm a little bit confused, and it's because you like took me out for coffee, and that's kind of more of like a date thing. Like, why would you ask them, call them out? Because I would hope that they're not doing that with everyone and just nobody is clear about anything. You know, you have the right, and I know people in here who have done this and who have said like, I just need some clarity because what you're doing is giving mixed signals, and maybe that person genuinely didn't know. And so they can also learn and correct certain things that could be misleading or seen as flirting. So you have the right to ask. And then also I want to say one last thing. If you do go out together and you do talk and you realize that it doesn't work out, let's re-enter community well. We know actually a couple that exactly happened. They did start dating and they stopped dating and they had to re-enter community. And it took a lot of awkward conversations. It took come to a CYA night and the next day they call one another. That was so weird. Like, how do we do this? We have the same friends. Confronting conversations, guys. We want to be a community where we can recover from potentially thinking that someone was it and then they weren't. So be able to have those confronting conversations and talk through that awkwardness. I promise it won't be awkward forever. It just always kind of is in the beginning.
And if you ever find yourselves in those places, know that like we're here for you. If you're ever like, hey, I just need to talk with someone, I want to have a confronting conversation, need to have one or whatever, we're here for you guys, you know, like navigating all this side of things. We can't answer every question tonight, but hopefully we did address some things that have been helpful.